Hello, I'm Miranda, and welcome to another Warmachine Battle Report. Today I've got Reilly as a guest here from the other channel, Should Have Turned Left, which is also does Albuquerque Battle Reports, so check that out when you have time. Reilly, what are we playing today?
I'm going to be playing Protectorate of Menoth, High Exemplar Kreoss.
Versus Harkevich, the Iron Wolf, in a 35-point list. So let's see how this goes. Khador is being led by Harkevich, the Iron Wolf. He has Black Ivan and a Demolisher Warjack. His army includes Silena Rayfil and the Nis Hunters, a unit of Kayazi Eliminators, a Winter Guard Mortar Crew, Iris, Angel of Retribution, and a Colden Lord. Protectorate is being led by High Exemplar Kreoss with 2 Reckoner Warjacks, a Minimum Choir of Menoth, a Reclaimer and 2 Knights Exemplar Seneschals, a Vassal Mechanic and 2 Vassals of Menoth, 3 Racks, and a full unit of Holy Zealots with a Monolith Bearer. Protectorate wins the starting roll and decides to go second. We are playing the Steamroller 2015 scenario incoming. Khador has the stockpile objective, and Protectorate has the fuel cache objective. Khador deploys with the Jacks and Mortar Crew on one side and the Nis on the other. Protectorate deploys similarly, with the Zealots facing the Nis. Urban Matz provided me with the terrain mat we're using today. Khador, turn 1. Harkevich allocates 1 focus to the Demolisher and keeps the rest. The Colden Lord activates and uses Power Booster to add a focus to Black Ivan. The Mortar Crew runs up toward the objective. Harkevich activates and spends 2 focus to cast Escort. He then moves up the board 6 inches. The Demolisher activates and spends a focus to run up the board. Black Ivan also spends a focus to run. The Nis Hunters activate and issue a run order, then head upfield. The Eliminators activate and run up to the objective in base contact. Finally, Iris activates and walks up to the friendly zone. Protectorate, turn 1. Kreoss allocates a focus to each Reckoner. A Reckoner activates and runs upfield. The second Reckoner does the same. Kreoss activates and spends 3 focus to cast Lamentation on himself. He then moves up 5 inches. The Zealots activate and pray Warding, then perform their mini-feat, Greater Destiny. They cannot be damaged except from spells and feats, and Warding protects them from enemy spells. They run up the board to jam in. The Reclaimer activates and walks up near Kreoss. A Vassal moves up behind a Reckoner and puts Enliven on the model. The second Vassal moves up and also puts Enliven on a Reckoner. A Seneschal activates and runs up to the objective. The Choir activates and moves up 6 inches and puts Passage on the Warjacks to prevent non-magical ranged attacks. The second Seneschal embeds with the Zealots. Finally, the Vassal Mechanic runs up near a forest. Khador, turn 2. Harkevich spends a focus to upkeep Escort and allocates a focus to the Demolisher. The Mortar Crew activates and fires at the Seneschal by the objective. They need a 10 to hit and miss. The attack deviates 6 inches away from everything. The Colden Lord moves up and tows into the forest, then puts Power Booster on Black Ivan. Black Ivan activates and moves up and takes an opportunistic shot at Kreoss, who he happens to have in line of sight. I need a 9 to hit, which is boosted because of Ivan's affinity. The attack hits directly, and I boost damage at dice -3, causing 9 damage to Kreoss. The Demolisher runs upfield and stands in the enemy zone. Harkevich walks up to the objective and feats. His battle group now has +3 armor for the round. The Nis just advance up. 2 Nis make a combined ranged attack against a Seneschal. They need a 5 to hit and make it. It's dice -3 for damage, and they roll enough to disable the Seneschal. 2 other Nis make a combined ranged attack on the other Seneschal, needing a 5, which makes it. This time, they only cause 3 damage. Iris moves up to the far edge of the friendly zone. The Eliminators run up. Protectorate, turn 2. The Seneschal is destroyed in the maintenance phase. Kreoss spends a focus to upkeep Lamentation and allocates 2 focus to each Reckoner. Kreoss pulls a focus off of the back rack, and we roll to see if it explodes. It does, but no one is in range of the blast. Kreoss activates and shifts around the objective a bit. He then casts his feat. All models in his control area are knocked down. The Zealots activate and pray fervor. They then advance up toward my Nis. The first Zealot throws a firebomb at a Nis. He hits on anything but double ones and makes it. The Nis is immediately killed. Another Zealot tosses a firebomb at a Nis. The attack hits and kills. The next Zealot does the same, hits and kills another Nis. The next Zealot targets a Nis and hits, but catches a Zealot in the blast, who is also killed. Another Nis dies to a firebomb and triggers a command check, which they pass. Another Nis is bombed and killed. A Zealot targets a standing Nis and misses. The attack drifts only slightly, but the blast still kills him. Another bomb misses, but the blast still kills the Nis Hunter. By the end, Silena is left with 1 grunt remaining. The choir activate and move up. They put battle on the warjacks. A Reckoner charges the armor 28 Demolisher and makes an assault shot first. It needs a 3 to hit and makes it, setting my Jack on fire, but causing no damage. The melee attack automatically hits at dice -9, and the Demolisher takes 7 damage to column 5. The Jack buys another attack which hits, but causes no damage. A Vassal moves up and puts Enliven on the Reckoner. The second Reckoner activates and charges Black Ivan for free because of fuel cache. It stays at reach range and makes an assault shot first, hitting on anything but double ones, and makes it. It's dice -9 for damage, and Black Ivan takes no damage. The charge attack hits at dice -4, and Black Ivan takes 5 damage to column 2. The Reckoner buys another attack which auto-hits, and Ivan takes 5 damage to column 3. The Reckoner buys a final attack which causes 5 damage to column 4, but does not knock any systems out. A Vassal moves up and puts Enliven on the Reckoner. The Reclaimer moves up slightly. The Seneschal moves up into the zone. And finally, the Vassal Mechanic moves up to hang out with the choir. Khador, turn 3. We roll to see if Black Ivan's fire goes out, and it does. The Demolisher's fire stays on, but it cannot hurt the Jack. Harkevich upkeeps Escort and allocates 2 focus to the Demolisher. The Mortar Crew targets a choir member, needing a 9 to hit, and misses. The blast catches a Vassal at dice -5, and the model takes 2 damage. The Nis activate, and 1 sacrifices movement to stand up. Silena moves up and takes a shot at the choir member. She needs a 5 to hit and makes it. It's dice -3 for damage, and the choir member dies. The second remaining Nis shoots at a Vassal, needing a 7 to hit. The attack connects and causes 4 damage to the Vassal. The Eliminators activate and sacrifice action to move and advance up. Iris activates and moves up to shoot Kreoss. She just barely has range to him and needs a 5 to hit. The attack hits and causes Lamentation to drop, and he loses all focus. Harkevich activates and casts Jumpstart for 1 focus, so all Jacks stand up. He then moves up and casts Fortune on the Demolisher for 2 focus. He takes a hand cannon shot at the Reclaimer, needing a 7 to hit, and makes it. It's dice -1 for damage, and the Reclaimer dies. The Demolisher activates and shifts over toward the Zealot, moving him 2 inches away with Bulldoze, then moves toward the Reckoner, bulldozing him 2 inches away as well. Then the Jack moves back up an inch, triggering a free strike from the Reckoner, which hits at dice -8. The Jack takes 8 damage to column 6, which takes out an arm. The Demolisher is free from engagement and makes a ranged attack at Kreoss, who is also just in range of the guns. I need a 10 to hit and boost the attack roll. The first shot makes it at power 15, which is straight dice. Kreoss takes 7 damage. The second shot misses, but with fortune, the reroll hits and causes enough damage to kill Kreoss. This leaves us with a Khador victory. Please stay tuned for the post-battle wrap-up as my opponent and I discuss the battle a bit more in depth. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to stay up to date with all things WarGamerGirl, you can follow me on Facebook. And if you'd like to help support my videos, you can do so on Patreon. Now for the discussion. Alright, now for the post-game discussion. We just finished up our 35-point battle between Menoth and Khador. So we'll talk a little bit, starting off with list construction. So Reilly, you said that this list was a breakdown of your 50-point list, right? So how did it come together?
Yeah, so the 50-point list includes errants as well in the errant UA and the errant seneschal.
Okay.
And then the vassal mechanic gets dropped out for Rupert,
The Piper
of
okay.
Ord. And so those obviously weren't in this list. And so,
thank goodness for me.
but the list construction really looks to take advantage of Kreoss being able to knock people down.
Yes.
Zealots being under fervor, Rat 6, they struggle to hit some things. Knocked down, I'm rolling snakes.
Yeah.
Getting a Reckoner into something that's knocked down, it's going to put a huge hurting on it because I'm hitting you with a Power Strength 19 club. So it plays around the strengths of Kreoss being essentially a walking feat.
Now, you seem to enjoy bringing the Zealots, or I don't know how often you bring Zealots, but Zealots are in this list as opposed to like Exemplar Errants that a lot of people see. What do you think are the strengths of bringing Zealots?
Zealots, I run Zealots in essentially all of my tournament lists.
Okay.
I think they're, and argue with me if you want, Internet, but I think they are arguably one of the best, if not the best unit in Protectorate.
Really?
Because they can armor crack with their bombs.
POW 14, right?
POW 14 under fervor. They can lock down an entire side of the board for a turn with Greater Destiny.
I know.
I can walk forward Greater Destiny and say, you can't do anything over here now.
With the
mini
warding
feat, with the warding and the mini feat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then because they can shoot up to arm 16, it just adds a little bit of extra survivability to it. And so I look at them and I say, these guys can essentially just sit on one side of the board and unless something catastrophic happens.
Or you set them on fire.
Or you set them on fire, that works too, but Menites don't usually get set on fire. You can just take over the whole side of the board. And so
no, you can't. You gave me some really hard choices there.
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to the Errants, where with Errants, I generally use them to be a front line to just absorb the Alpha Shock. They disappear on like turn 2. And then the rest of the army does all the heavy lifting.
Which they were kind of your tar pit for this, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. They're the tar pit in this list. They kind of absorb that.
Okay, and then you just have the Reckoners to come in and
the Reckoners and the Zealots to come in and beat face. That's right.
And then you've got 2 vassals doing the ancillary attacks.
Mm-hmm. 2 vassals to support the Reckoners. The choir obviously supporting the Reckoners. And then I have the 2 exemplar seneschals just essentially being obnoxious pieces that don't die and can deny you points.
Yeah.
Not to mention if they get into combat, they kind of hurt their POW strength 11 can be POW strength 13 weapon masters.
Yeah, so a little bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
I knew from my side, I knew I was facing Menoth, and typically I'll do a lot of like high defense list building, but one, I like Harkevich, and I kind of wanted to do some more with the armor side, and you always have to, if you're facing Menoth, you have to kind of expect that somewhere in there Kreoss is there because he's really good. So yeah, I bought Harkevich and I was like, well, maybe the Clamjack side, because I know a lot of people will use broadside with the Demolisher because you can broadside first, then the Demolisher activates and he never actually has to open up and putting himself at risk. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to be casting broadside every turn because I think Harkevich really needs to camp focus to stay alive. Because his stats are, 15, 16, so...
it's not great.
Yeah, so he can definitely get shot, and of course there's the Warcaster, so everybody's going to prioritize to it, So I put the, Black Ivan, he's just good anyway, because you only need to run him with 1 focus, which is why I brought the Grey Lord, Colden Lord. Mm-hmm. And then Nis, I debated Winter Guard, but I was going to try Nis because I figured I'd be getting engaged in melee. Unfortunately, every single time I play Nis, Selena watches like her family die over and over. And that was no different this game. And when the Zealots moved up, I was like, oh my goodness, because you mini-feeded turn 1.
I mini-feeded turn 1, so you weren't able to hurt me.
Yeah.
And then I feeded turn 2, so...
And then
I just...
all but Selena and one dude.
And one dude, yeah. Because I was stupid and activated kind of wrong and shooting where I wanted to shoot bombs. That one guy would have died had I been...
Oh, just... So it would have just been Selena.
So it would have been Selena.
So he spared her a little bit. Come on. Anyway... So yes, Zealots are very good, and I didn't have any magical weapons to really face against that, so I was, of course I'm Khador, so first you take the hit and then you dash it back out. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing I was really left with after my tar pit was obliterated was to try to assassinate, because that's kind of what the game leaves you with if you find yourself way down on attrition. Mm-hmm. But that's where I got to play with my bulldoze nonsense, which was awesome, which is why I brought 2 jacks with bulldoze, because you can kind of make an opening. I thought maybe if I need to get in with a charge, or maybe I can shoot with the Nis if they're still alive. But no, turns out Demolisher with Fortune on it was what I needed. So yay for that.
And I also think a really important part of the game was when Black Ivan just randomly lobbed a shot into Kreoss.
That was just a total opportunity shot.
And did like 9 damage or something ridiculous like that, because I'm sitting here, if that hadn't done that much damage.
Yeah, it would have been a different strategy.
It would have been a way different strategy, because then the Demolisher, while still doing straight dice, you're not. Kreoss isn't as weak.
There's only 2 shots in here.
Yeah, there's only 2 sheets.
And there's not so much redundancy. You're right.
There's a chance Kreoss can survive that. So.
And you had Black Ivan engaged, and I was really scared I was going to have to take a disengaging strike.
Definitely.
Which would have possibly killed him, considering how well he was rolling the attacks of opportunity. Definitely. And you're right. That's a good point you bring up. Of course, with my thought when I saw his army, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to shoot arcing fire shots or my mortar crew into his support and try to, whittle that down so the jacks aren't as good, but I really couldn't reach them, and my drifts were awful on the mortar crew. So it really was sort of a lucky shot, and I know you were expecting that. You were like, oh, I thought you'd be going for the support, but it just so happened that I saw that opportunity, that little sliver to see Kreoss, and then did pretty well on the damage roll for that.
Did a pretty decent damage roll, and so, I mean, that was... I think that played a big role into the assassination run, because it made the assassination run just that much more possible. Yeah. Looking at it going, Kreoss is below half health. And
Iris was barely in range to knock the focus off as well. Was just barely and Lamentation off.
Yeah, having Lamentation off was huge, because then you wouldn't have been able to cast Fortune. Exactly. Because that would have cost you 4 to cast Fortune.
And thank goodness I had Jumpstart, because that is actually a really good counter. It happened to work out that way, but it's a good counter to Kreoss's feat for my jacks anyway. So.
Definitely. And an Arm 28 jack, that is... I expect a lot of my Reckoners. I expect them to get a lot of work done, and that one Reckoner just kind of flailed uselessly against the Clamjack.
Charged in and bounced off of him. That's not true. He did 7 damage to an armor 28 jack.
He did 7 damage on the charge attack, but then on the 2 consequent attacks, he just kind of it just bounced off, and I was like...
To be fair, what do you expect? What
do you expect?
It's one turn.
True, but I mean...
And that's why I was not interested in opening him up at all, so... No, it was fun. I got to kind of explore the Demolisher a little more. I got to use Bulldoze in a way I hadn't really done before.
You kind of pinballed around in there and knocked everything back.
Yeah, well, I was like, okay, each model can only be moved once per activation, so I gotta be really careful. And I was really debating whether or not I could keep Escort up, or if I could put that extra focus in, but thankfully I didn't need to. I did need the movement, I think, so. So that's where we were with that. It was an interesting game. 35 points. It made it pretty tight and fast. I think with a 50-point list. I'm not sure what I would have added to Harkevich's stuff. I might have just changed casters for a 50 point, but...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I feel like, at 50-point lists, they're fun, and that's kind of the standard for what is played in the Warmachine community. But at 35-point list, you really have to think about your list construction a little bit more.
Yeah, you take out support.
You can't take what you want. Well, and it's interesting. In my case, I don't take out support. I actually take out...
the hitters.
I take out my first wave of the people who just absorb the impact. Because the errants get taken out, and the errants are who absorb the impact. So,
fair enough.
35 points really forces you to think about your list, and really forces you to say, what can I live with out here and still keep the integrity of the list?
Yeah, you kind of have to know what you're going to do with it. You were just planning to win on a scenario for the most part? Were you just wanted to dominate, or were you just coming to set Harkevich on fire and destroy him?
With that, my initial goal was to try and see if I could just push you out of my zone, and then get Kreoss up into the zone and just have Kreoss sit there and beat your people out of it. And just do that. And if by chance you presented an assassination to me, I would definitely take it.
Which I did. I mean, if Harkevich didn't win that turn, he was dead.
If Kreoss didn't die that turn, Harkevich would have been dead. But I mean, I wanted to try and clear that zone and then get Kreoss up over there and just keep you out of the zone.
So is Kreoss one of your favorite casters?
Definitely. I tend to get away from it just because I like playing with all the different casters in Menoth, but Kreoss 1 and Kreoss 2 and even Kreoss 3 to some point are really my bread and butter. I'm good with them, I enjoy playing them, and every time I come back to playing them after kind of a hiatus of playing other people, I go, why don't I play Kreoss more often?
I feel that way about Sorsha, actually. Or Old Witch. I miss her all the time.
Sure, I could see that.
And you get a lot of practice games in too on the other channel.
I do. On the other channel, I'm a pretty
Should Have Turned Left.
Should Have Turned Left. I'm a pretty common cast member of Should Have Turned Left, and I get a lot of practice in on that channel. And I do play Kreoss actually quite often on that channel. So go check it out, everybody. Should Have Turned Left.
There you go. There's the shameless plug. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. And let me know what you think in the comments down below and what you think of this game. And we will see you later.